Welcome to Politics and the Pulpit here live on KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and AM 1220. Welcome to the show where we are unashamed to be Christian and unashamed to be MAGA conservative. That's right, Make America Great Again is a rallying cry against country club republicanism and the dying neocon movement. May Bill Kristol forever be remembered as a neocon. MAGA represents good, old-fashioned constitutional conservatism at its finest, and we'll have more to say about what it means to be MAGA in a little bit, and we will comment on the hologram-in-chief's 21st century Salem witch trial speech of last week, where he was flanked by two Marines on a stage that looked as if it was the entrance to hell. So we'll talk more about that in a little bit. I want to thank Laura Sextro of the Unity Project for last week's interview. That was a taped interview. I was out of town last week shooting the Elusive Dove. It was the Dove opener last week. So I went to Yuma, and this was my first time ever going there. By the way, for those of you that are hunters, I think you'll understand what I'm talking about here. But Yuma is to dove hunters what Mecca is to the Muslims. I mean, there are people that literally take pilgrimages to Yuma to go dove hunting. It is an epic place to do so. And this was my first time. I was gracious by the invite of a preacher friend that lives there, pastors a church there, and had a great time shooting dove. So again, I want to just thank Laura Sextro of the Unity Project for last week's interview. I do hope you found it both interesting and educational. And if you want to learn more about the Unity Project and what they stand for, then please look up the Unity Project online and read and listen until your heart is content. They've got great interviews, great podcasts, great resource materials, especially when it comes to the various bills that are literally going to be passed here on the Senate floor here in the state of California that have to do with vaccinations and things of that nature. Of course, the Unity Project could probably celebrate at least one victory. Last week, a particular bill was voted down that would have allowed 12-year-olds to make their own decision about the COVID vaccination, and probably who knows what else was written in the bill, but without parental consent. So thankfully, that was one victory in the bag. But of course, we cannot give up. There are more and more and more that are coming down the pike. So keep being persistent and consistent out there. Real quick shameless plug, if you are interested in a good, Bible-believing, no-nonsense, non-seeker-sensitive church to attend, then give Freedom's Way Baptist Church a visit. Yours truly, of course, is the shepherd of that church. Visit us online at freedomswaybaptistchurch.com. That's freedoms with an S, freedomswaybaptistchurch.com. During the second half of our show today, we will be visited in studio by Denise Light, that's L-I-T-E, by the way, who is running for Santa Clarita City Council. And Denise has been attending our church for a few weeks, and I've gotten to know her a little bit. And so there are at least 3 candidates that are up, and so she is trying to at least displace one of them. So we'll be meeting Denise Light in a little bit. I think she'll be in studio with us. Next week, I want you to think about this, thinking about next week in our show here at Politics in the Pulpit. Pastor Jerry Scheidbach of the Lighthouse Baptist Church in Santa Maria will be my guest. He'll be calling in. He wrote a book called Let My People Breathe. It's a book, a very interesting book, by the way. I'll read excerpts of it from it next week ahead of the interview. But it's all about the religious connotations and let me put it another way here, kind of the cultic connotations, if you will, of wearing the mask. Now, again, I'm not against wearing the mask. If you want to wear the mask and it makes you feel good, wonderful, please do so. Not against that. But there is a psyche behind it. There is something a little more insidious and frankly, rather devilish in a lot of ways. And so I'll let Pastor Jerry Scheidbach, who wrote the book Let My People Breathe, that, by the way, is a play on the phrase, let my people go, from the book of Exodus, for those of you that are biblically literate out there in radio world. Now, with that in mind, as we talked about Denise Light coming in here during the second half of the show, just for perspective, the November midterms are just over 2 months away. That's right. We are in the month of September, and then we got October, and then November 8th is going to be the midterms. I know it seems like we've been waiting all year. It's because we've been waiting all year, obviously. But November 8th is the November midterms. This is the opportunity for America to resoundingly sound off on the last 2 years. If you've enjoyed the last 2 years, if you've enjoyed the response of the lockdowns, if you've enjoyed the response of your children not being allowed to go to school, or if they were going to school, they had to be masked, from their forehead down to their navel, or if you enjoy, having even days and odd days to go out to go shopping, or just think about the last 2.5 years. If you enjoy the last 2.5 years, then I guess you're going to vote for the same stuff on November 8th. If you like high gas prices, if you like inflation, if you like your prime rib to be a lot more than it was a year ago, then keep voting for the status quo. But this is your opportunity to sound off. And Lord willing, you will, quote, see the light and make the right choice come this November. And let me just also say this, in light of the fact that Denise is coming in, you need to keep in mind that politics are decidedly local. What happens to you here in the city, where you reside, will have more of an impact upon you and your family than much of what happens in Washington. Now, that's not to say that what happens in Washington stays in Washington. Lord, don't we wish that would occur. But the fact is, that's not always the case. But local politics is where it's at. And I think Republicans and conservatives generally are starting to see that. Just a couple weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was in the state of Florida where Ron DeSantis backed 30 local school board candidates and 25 out of the 30 won. That is an amazing, amazing track record. And we're trying to do that here in the city of Santa Clarita. We've got some what we call the Parents First, Families First candidates. And this is not an endorsement, of course. But some of those candidates are Charlene Johnson and Jesus Hanel, Anna Grease, Joe Messina, Bob Jensen, and Brian Walters, among some. That's, of course, William S. Hart District and Newhall, I believe, but or Saugus School District, I should say. But you need to see who those candidates are. You need to read into what they believe, and it's very important for you to understand this. So what happens to you in the city where you reside will have more of an impact upon you. And let me also say this. Consider who's running for city council. That's going to be important. Who's going to be your city council? What about your water board, specifically those of us who live here in Southern California? Water board is important. You would think that that's a non-political position to be in. Of course, when I was younger, I just thought being on the water board meant that was some sort of slow torture treatment. But nevertheless, that's not the case. Some good guys that are running for water board, guys like Bill Cooper and others, you need to look these guys up, meet them. And, of course, local school boards in our districts here in Santa Clarita, you need to figure out who these people are. If they're family first, then you need to make sure you vote for them. You want to vote for the person or the people who will best represent your Christian and constitutional values. One of the reasons why we live in the community we live in is because we're either Bible-believing Christians or we're constitutionalists. And there's a reason why we don't live in the asphalt jungle of Los Angeles proper. I mean, other than, giving our tonsils sunburn looking up on top of those skyscrapers. But we live out in the suburbs because we like living out here. So again, you want to vote for people who will best represent your values. That means they will predominantly be pro-life, they will predominantly be pro-family, and they will predominantly be pro-faith. Now, by the way, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to share your faith, but they're not going to necessarily put out the fire of your faith. And by the way, it's not exactly in that order. I would say pro-faith, pro-life, pro-family. So how many of you actually, I want you to think about this, how many of you actually stomached through Biden's blood red speech last Thursday? I mean, did you stomach through it? Thankfully, on my way back from Yuma, I listened to much of the speech on radio and could only get through about the first quarter before I began purging my lunch from that day, and there wasn't much to purge. This speech, if you can call it that, was the most partisan, the most anti-American speech delivered by a modern American president. I wasn't alive during the days of Woodrow Wilson. I've heard from history that he delivered some interesting speeches as well, and you need to look into the history of Woodrow Wilson to understand why I say that. But the fact is, in terms of modern American presidents of my lifetime, that would be Ford on, Gerald Ford on, this was probably the most anti-American speech delivered on American soil against predominantly Americans. I believe the entire speech was meant to tickle the ears of the AOC Grandpa Bernie wing of the Democratic Party, and it essentially labeled over 75 million Americans as threats to American democracy. I have a question for you, and this isn't a serious question. What do you do with people who are, quote, threats to American democracy? I want you to think about that. What do you do with people who are, quote, threats to American democracy? I have a guess, and it's just a guess. It's a hyperbole. You sick 87,000 newly deputized IRS agents on them and seek to neutralize the threat by bankrupting and or threatening your way into compliance. Just a theory. I just find it interesting that on the heels of this blood-red speech from last Thursday, we now have these 87,000 newly deputized IRS agents that I believe are going to seek those who are, quote, MAGA, and are going to seek to neutralize the threat by bankrupting and threatening their way into compliance. You say, that's in a banana republic. Well, welcome to the new banana republic. Mark my words, and I want you to listen to this. I believe Bible-believing churches in particular will be one of the first they will target. Churches that have an opinion, churches that kind of balked the closures of 2020, churches that aren't afraid to sing when the governor tells you you can't sing. Mark my words, they know who we are, and they are going to ask for your records for the last 5 to 10 years. My suggestion, preacher, if you're listening, is to give them 5 to 10 years of your receipts and don't even bother to order them. Just organize them. Just give them the boxes and say, have fun. Now, again, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that these 87,000 newly deputized IRS agents is not intended to instill fear and to be a threat to American citizens, but seeing what I've seen for the last couple of years from this administration, I can't help but believe that this is what their intended purpose for these agents will be. And one of the main themes of Biden's blood speech was how questioning elections was a major threat to democracy. Of course, 2020 was what Biden had in mind, but why can't we get answers to simple questions? We did a show a couple weeks ago where we talked about how one side of the political aisle does not want to ask questions. There was a time in American history that the left loved to scrutinize everything. There was a time in American history where the left always said, question authority. There was a time in American history where the left were the first ones to stand up and say, you know what, we need to make sure we ask questions, and we need to know why this is the way it is. Here we are, fast forward to 2022, and that same group of people are completely neutered and just want everyone to fall in line in a compliant manner. And how dare you ask any questions of our noble leader? The implication from old Joe was that MAGA conservatives were the only ones who ever questioned the outcome of an election. But when we come back from the break, we're going to read off not one, not 2, not 3, but dozens of Democrats questioning and even denying certified election results. In just a few minutes, we'll do that. I hope you'll come back and listen to this next segment on Politics in the Pulpit here on KHTS, your hometown station, AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. See you in a bit.
If you need help at home or at the office, call Made For You. Made For You is a locally owned, bonded, and licensed cleaning service with over 20 years of experience. All employees are vetted for your protection. No need to buy products or equipment. The Made For You staff comes complete with everything needed to make your home or office cleaner than ever. Hire Made For You one time, as needed, or an ongoing basis. No room is off limits. Laundry and ironing services are also available. Call Made For You for a free estimate. 255-2922. That's 255-2922.
Olive Terrace Bar and Grill is the hottest new Mediterranean fusion restaurant in Santa Clarita with unique delicacies like seafood right off the boat, mouth-watering prime steaks, artesian sandwiches, delicious pastas, and tasty kebabs. Unwind on their cozy outdoor patio at their weekend champagne brunch. Full menu and weekly specials at oliveterracebarandgrill.com. Check out their full bar and happy hour daily specials in Valencia on Copper Hill and Newhall Ranch Road by LA Fitness. Olive Terrace Bar and Grill, delicious food seasoned with love.
Coming to the Canyon, Gordon Lightfoot, Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Berlin, The Motels, Robbie Krieger of The Doors, Corey Feldman, The Smithereens, Boyko Boyko former members, Stephen Piercy of Rat, Pancho Sanchez, War, Chicago Tributes by Danny Seraphine, and CTA, and Leonid and Friends, Missing Persons, Ambrosia, The Spinners, Eric Gales, and so much more. Country nights every Thursday. The Canyon is the perfect place to host special events. Call 888-645-5006 to book yours today. The Canyon, Santa Clarita, where music meets the soul. Tickets available through access.com.
KHTS strives to give the Santa Clarita Valley all the information they need, and when our computers aren't working the way they should, we call Resurgence, your true source for IT. Resurgence provides outstanding customer service while also providing the highest technical ability. They strive to do what's best to improve and protect your business. For more information on Resurgence, call 349-4114 or visit resurgenceit.com.
If you're thinking of remodeling the bathroom, but just don't have the time or money, how about a new shower enclosure? Preferred Glass and Windows can help change the entire look of your bathroom with frameless, semi-framed, and fully framed showers. New hardware options, textures, and glass thickness options are endless. Worried about water stains? Don't be. Preferred Glass and Windows offers a protective coating to deal with buildup. Call Preferred Glass and Windows for a free consultation. 661-255-1170. That's 255-1170.
Hometown, your hometown station.
All right, welcome back to Politics in the Pulpit with Pastor Jerry Cook. And here on your hometown station, KHTS, AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. I teased you a little bit with the Democrats that were election deniers. We're going to get right back to that here in just a few minutes. But I want to make sure that I give our guest, Denise Light, an adequate amount of time here for these copious questions that we're going to ask her. And, of course, we do the same thing that they do over at MSNBC and CNN. We give everyone the questions beforehand. I'm just kidding. But I do want to welcome to our show Denise Light.
Hello.
Denise, tell us a little bit about your last name.
It's definitely easier than my former last name, which was Placencio. I would go to court and the judges would say, Miss Placenta. And I was like,
Wow.
oh, whoa.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy to have a new 4-letter last name, Light.
Very good.
Yes.
Denise Light. That is a rather interesting name. What's the origin of that? What's your husband's last name?
That is my husband's last name, Light.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Oh, well, the origins, I'm not quite sure, because he was adopted.
Okay.
But that was his father's last name. So.
By the way, your last name is not going to necessarily, mean that you're going to get city council or not get city council, but it's a nice last name, Denise Light. I've been teasing you, saying Santa Clarita needs to see the light.
Correct, you have.
And so, well, Denise, can you tell the folks that are listening in, why are you running for city council? Why do you think it's important to run?
Well, Yeah, you touched on something that I say all of the time, which is there is nothing that can happen in Washington that will affect our daily lives more than what happens on school board, water board, and city council.
Sure.
You know, Washington gets all the attention, it gets all the news, it's fancy, but what we do here with our local officials is far more important to our day to day happiness than what happens there.
Absolutely.
So I can tell you why I'm not running. I'm not running because I need another job. And I'm not running because I need a $2,000 a month stipend or health insurance,
Sure.
like some candidates are running.
Hmm.
Why I am running is because I love this city so much. I have 2 children. I'm a business owner in this community. I'm a homeowner in this community. I'm a mama bear in this community. And I want to make sure that this community stays safe and prosperous for everybody for the next 20 years. So that's why I'm running.
So you have a stake in this because you live in the community.
I do. And, you know, it's so funny. 13 years ago, when I moved out here from Calabasas, I thought, wow, Valencia, it's like going to Oregon. It is far, you know, and now I can't even imagine myself living on the quote other side of the hill in the San Fernando Valley.
No, I get it. Of course, that other side gets a little cooler than us, though.
Well, it depends on which day of the year it is, but yeah.
I guess that's true. But
And I'll take the heat over the open space any time of the day.
absolutely, I completely agree. I love the city as well, and Lord willing, we'll see what happens in November. But let me ask you another question, Denise. What skills and experiences would you do, or would you bring to the table if, in fact, you were elected this November?
Well, a lot of people don't know, but I am a trained lawyer. I've been running my own law firm for 26 years. I have taken a specialist exam in the field of law, which very few judges have passed in my field, and I have passed. I've taken a mediation certificate program. And when you're a lawyer, you have to be able to do 2 things really well. Number one, you have to listen before you talk, because you can either find the weakness in your opponent's case, or you can figure out what the need is that can be met and be thinking about solutions. So you have to be a good listener before you can be a good talker.
Sure.
The second skill is advocacy. You don't run a successful law firm for 26 years by being an unsuccessful advocate. You have to be able to frame the issues, know the other side inside and out, and be able to address those things. And those 2 skills, I believe, will be critically important going forward on the city council.
Very good. What do you believe to be the top 3 most pressing concerns for the community in the Santa Clarita Valley, and why do you believe they are the pressing issues?
The top 3 pressing concerns in the valley, as I see them, are number one, public safety. We have a district attorney in Los Angeles who doesn't care about humanity,
Whose name shall not be spoken here.
and he has basically decriminalized crime. And every time I talk to people, people are feeling more and more unsafe. They're feeling more and more worried about their family safety. So public safety to me is very important. We have a local sheriff's station group of guys and gals in the sheriff's department who are working 30, 40 days straight without a day off because they're down 30%. So in my opinion, the city needs to work harder at getting more contracted time, because we are a contract service valley, and maybe spending money on not spending money on non-essential things and putting more money into contracting more time. So public safety, number one. Number two, homelessness. Santa Clarita in the last 4 years Santa Clarita residents have paid $26.8 million in Measure H tax funds to the county.
Yeah.
And we have only received back $675,000 of those funds. So if I had to be critical, which I am, I would say that there has been very poor advocacy on our city's part in getting money back to us that we have paid, because that is a 2.5% return on investment. And if I was only 2.5% successful in my practice, I wouldn't be practicing anymore.
And that's not a great return even on a CD.
Well, right, exactly. So we are not getting our money's worth, no pun intended,
Sure.
on our Measure H funds.
I know that in Santa Clarita, we're really good at hiding a lot of our homeless, but there's no doubt that, it's becoming more and more prevalent. So I think this being your second most pressing issue, I think is something that voters are thinking about as well.
Well, yeah, and you see people on the street, and I had a chance to meet one of the candidates, Cody Amore, who is a homeless resident, and he had some very solid points that he made. But homelessness is not always chosen. Sometimes people go through a divorce. Sometimes they have a catastrophic medical event that bankrupts them. Sometimes they have family issues. We need to figure out a way to put our hand out to these people so we can help them out of their situation.
Sure.
Because hopefully it never happens, but it should be transitory at best, and we have to figure that out. It's a multifaceted. It's a political question. It's a social question. It's an economic question. But I can tell you one thing: it is not solved purely by money.
Absolutely. So public safety, homelessness, what's that third?
Economic vitality. I've been a business owner for 26 years. I know what it's like to have the responsibility of feeding families on our shoulders. I know businesses and friends of mine who had businesses who closed during COVID. Now that we know better and we have the hindsight of the last 2 years, I think we can do better in keeping our businesses open, advocating for exemptions with the county, because the county of Los Angeles, those people in downtown Los Angeles don't give a whit about us in Northern County.
No, you're absolutely right.
They don't. So I would like to have a better economic vitality plan so that if and when another pandemic arises,
Lord help us.
We have a better plan in place.
Yeah, well, it probably won't be monkeypox. Since LA County Health has created a one-size-fits-all on passing out emergency health mandates, and of course this is a question that I think a lot of us have been wondering about, especially in the last couple of years with the Dr. Death down there, Barbara Ferrer, who one of my members at church like to call her the Crypt Keeper. I think that's probably good. She does look a little bit like the Crypt Keeper. So what are your thoughts on the city creating a health administration that can better cater to the healthcare needs of our valley and kind of separate us from greater LA County, generally speaking, and stay away from Barbara Ferrer?
I don't know that we will ever be able to fully stay away from LA County. We are within their jurisdiction. However, if we were to have our own public health safety officer who is an actual medical doctor, we could have...
That's unique.
We could have a person advocating on our behalf who has knowledge of the facts and demographics. You cannot compare a valley and a city like Santa Clarita and the density to downtown Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You just can't. We have far more open space. We have less density. And to say that a one-size-fits-all approach should serve the entire county is just absurd. And so having that public safety officer, it may not get us to where we want, but it will help us advocate along the way with a stronger voice.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, and you're right. We're probably never going to totally get away from LA County in that sense, unless, of course, we succeed, annex ourselves, whatever you want to call it there. And what's the probability of that, right?
You can't operate on possibilities. You have to operate on probabilities, and I would say the probability of that is very low.
You threaded that just like a good lawyer. That was good. Recently, our station here, KHTS, held a press conference where SCV Sheriff Station officials told us that Santa Clarita, this safe, wonderful city that you and I both love, is leading LA County in fentanyl-related drug deaths. And this was totally surprising to me. But what can the city do to address this burgeoning issue that seems to be completely out of hand and completely out of character for our community?
So I was at that press conference. I attended personally. Congressman Garcia was there. Members of our city council were there. Captain Diaz was there. And it was a very powerful event. I spoke myself with Jaime Puerta, who is the father who woke up one morning to his son dead in his bedroom. And it was, I just said that and the hairs on my arm stood up. It was so incredibly powerful. And, fentanyl is basically poisoning kids who think that they're talking to their buddy and saying, hey, I want to stay up late and study. Do you have any Adderall? And these drugs are being laced or hit with fentanyl, and these kids are dying. There's no time to get addicted. It's a one and done. Your child calls his friend or maybe they want to pump up for the gym and take some HGH. They're taking one pill and they're waking up dead, or not waking up dead, I should say. And 21 people died this year alone of the reported cases.
Yeah.
And so a couple of things that can happen. Every single person, man, woman, and child, should watch Dead on Arrival on YouTube. It's a 22-minute documentary. Sit down and watch it with your child. It is an eye-opener. Second of all, the city is having Chase the High, September 23rd. It's a community event at the City Hall. It's to have questions, comments, concerns, bring awareness to the issue, allow it to be a door opening for parents to bring their kids into the conversation, and the city is putting that on. I think that's great. The third thing the city can do is to help advocate getting this movie into all of the schools as a mandatory watch. You know, we have rain days at school. On a rain day, or it's a hot day, instead of going outside, stay in the air conditioning and watch this 22-minute video. Every single class should watch it.
Yeah. Now, I've seen it. It's rather sobering, and I even think I think, frankly, some churches should probably show that to their congregants because it's a rather eye-opening video.
It's shocking, and it's devastating to think that, it's normal for children to experiment.
Unfortunately.
But it's not normal for children to be killed
Yeah.
experimenting.
Yeah.
And that's what this fentanyl is doing. It's killing them.
Yeah, fentanyl is nothing to shake a stick at. Of course, no drugs are, but this is
Right.
this is a death warrant essentially,
For sure.
and there's no doubt about that. Well, let's just quickly switch gears here ever so slightly from fentanyl. One of the reasons why that I moved out to Santa Clarita from the density of broader LA County, I was in Norwalk before I moved up here, was the fact that we have a lot of open country out here, a lot of parks and a lot of open air areas where you can hike and do kinds of stuff like that. I guess there was a recent poll taken where some folks are a little distraught with the overdevelopment that's occurring here in our valley. And obviously, I remember when I moved here in the 2000s, Plum Canyon, there used to be deer signs, deer crossing signs in Plum Canyon. Now, of course, there's a grocery outlet there.
Right.
So I'm sure the deer probably just go ahead and stand in line. But the fact is, I've noticed the overdevelopment, especially here going down the 14 freeway and looking to the right here, right before Sand Canyon, all those, those hip new places and hip new homes that they've got built. What say you about the development here in Santa Clarita? You think it's just right? You think it's overdeveloped? What say you, Denise Light?
I think people have very varied opinions about development. Overdevelopment or development is not bad so long as other things come along with it, so long as infrastructure improves with it, so long as there is a water plan that goes along with it, so long as there are jobs available for all of the people who move here. We don't want to be a city where people come in and out or stop along the way. We want to be a community where people live, work, and play here. And so we have to make sure that we have all of those amenities here as we are developing. Some people say that, Canyon Country, Newhall were developed at a smaller pace than Valencia, and that, the city's catching up. Well, that's happening real time in front of our own eyes with the 5-point development across the freeway. That is county property that is not within the auspices of the city, and it is growing, and we're going to end up catching up to them if we don't start forward thinking about the 10 years into the future, what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, and of course I'm not running for city council, just observation, I do think it's important to have progress. And obviously with progress, you're going to have a lot of building. And I think obviously for the last several years, Santa Clarita is a much long and sought after place to live.
For sure.
And, as long as we're one of those places that people want to move to, we're going to have people building. So
Correct.
KB homes the signs are coming everywhere. One last question. We're speaking to Denise Light, running for city council here in Santa Clarita. November 8th, of course, is the day that you guys can make your voices heard. But the final question for you, Denise, is this. Tell me why the residents of Santa Clarita should vote for you in just a few sentences or less, or from your heart, whatever you like to say. Why should the residents vote for you instead of going with the status quo?
Couple reasons. Number one, I say it like it is. Number two, I love this city. Number three, I'm a paid advocate in my day job. I would love to advocate for the city the city's behalf to make sure that the city is a great place for everybody to live.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Denise Light. We're looking forward to perhaps maybe having a huge party on the evening of November 8th.
I don't know if we're going to get election results on November 8th.
Oh, no, it's California.
Possibly the 9th or the 10th. I'm not quite sure.
Or maybe 2 weeks later.
The sooner the better, I would think.
Absolutely. And where will the party be? Vincenzo's? What are we going to do?
I don't. You know what? I'm going to work like I'm losing, and we'll see what happens at the end.
Well, Lord willing, from this pastor to God's ears, Santa Clarita will see the light on November 8th. And so if you would like to know more about Denise Light, Denise, would you tell people where you can find information about you?
ElectDeniseLight.com.
ElectDeniseLight.com. Sounds pretty easy. When we come back here on Politics in the Pulpit, we're going to talk a little bit about Democrats denying elections and denying a whole bunch of them. And again, thank you very much for listening today. Hometown Station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. See you in just a bit.
With locations throughout the valley, Providence offers the most advanced technology and therapies for treating cancer in Southern California. Call 1-888-HEALING for your annual checkup or second opinion. The road to healing leads to Providence.
Satisfy your sweet tooth with a bite of sweet perfection from Nothing Bundt Cakes in Valencia. Their decadent cakes are ideal for your next birthday, anniversary, baby shower, wedding, holiday party, and more. Nothing Bundt Cakes makes their treats readily available without compromising quality. You can expect real butter and cream cheese, fresh eggs, and lots of love in each of their 10 luscious flavors. To order your own sweet treat, visit their Valencia Bakery in the Whole Foods Shopping Center or log on to nothingbundtcakes.com.
The KHTS Home and Garden Show is now accepting vendors for our 12th annual event on Saturday, April 29th and Sunday, April 30th, 2023 at Central Park. Get in front of 20,000 Santa Clarita homeowners. Join over 400 vendors at our Valley's biggest trade show. Hurry, space is filling up fast for certain categories. Many vendors call our show the best use of their marketing dollars. To register, visit scvhomeshow.com. Admission and parking are free. scvhomeshow.com.
Dr. Neil Green has been treating Santa Clarita patients and making them smile for over 35 years. As a child, Dr. Green had a fear of the dentist and disliked even simple checkups. Today, he's sensitive to your needs. If you have anxiety about getting a checkup, he understands your apprehension even if you've avoided the dentist for years. Discover the comfort of visiting a dentist with Dr. Neil Green. Dentistry is his profession. People are his focus. NeilGreenDDS.com. That's Neil, N-E-A-L, GreenDDS.com.
Many families face a new challenge. Childcare has forced one parent out of the workforce. Otter has created a solution. Otter is a childcare marketplace that connects Santa Clarita parents who need childcare with stay-at-home parents who can care for your kids alongside their own. Otter unlocks the ability for those parents to earn money and provide badly needed childcare for our valley. Otter connects you with your neighbors. Register for free at withotter.com. Withotter.com. Otter, childcare that feels like family.
It's like no other station I've ever listened to. It's great.
Your hometown station.
And welcome back to Politics and the Pulpit with your holy host, Pastor Jerry Cook, here on your hometown station, KHTS AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. Had a great conversation with, Lord willing, the new city council member for Santa Clarita, Denise Light. Again, electdeniselight.com, and you can go ahead and check and see what she believes, other than what you've heard today in the interview. Before Denise came in, I teased you about the speech that our hologram-in-chief gave last Thursday with the red lights flanked by two Marines, and probably one of the most anti-American speeches ever delivered on American soil by a modern American president that essentially said, 75 million people, you are a threat to democracy. And one of the overarching themes of that speech, if you could call it that, was election denying. Biden's blood speech was how questioning elections was a major threat to democracy. I have, in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers, hat tip Rush Limbaugh, over 150 examples of Democrats denying election results. Now, I am not going to bore you with all 150. I have just simply outlined a few choice ones. This kind of started off a few days ago when Peter Doocy, the son of Steve Doocy from Fox, questioned White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre and asked her about her 2016 tweet, which stated, quote, "Trump stole the election." These are the same individuals who are trying to tell us that we're supposed to shut up and comply when these same people did the exact same thing that they're blaming other people of doing. There's absolutely no self-awareness in the minds of a leftist. There just isn't. But you know what? If we went back to the year 2000, which was a pretty rough election, if you remember, it all boiled down to Florida, and for the next 2 election cycles, they were hesitant to call Florida. Remember? They still kind of are a little hesitant to call Florida, all because of the Bush-Gore debacle. But Democrats called the 2000 presidential election stolen. They called it fraudulent. And Al Gore, the VP, repeatedly claimed that he was the real winner of the 2000 election. In 2002, Gore claimed he would have won if every vote in Florida was counted, and that he absolutely believed he would become president after the ordered recount. Gore's wife, Tipper, who of course is not his wife anymore, might want to Google what happened there, said that I still believe we won. In 2016, just a few years ago, Al Gore brought up the 2000 election during a rally for Hillary Clinton and did not refute chants from the audience saying he won. In 2017, Gore implied Jeb Bush may have had something to do with him losing Florida. If you remember, Jeb had something to do with Florida politics at the time. And Gore said in 2017, actually, I think I carried Florida. What about Hillary Clinton? Hillary Clinton more than once questioned the legitimacy of the 2000 election. In 2002, Clinton said Bush had been selected and not elected. Remember, that was a big rallying cry for these guys back in the 2000s, that Bush was selected, not elected. The list could go on. In 2004, Terry McAuliffe falsely accused Republicans of stealing the 2000 presidential election. In 2008, McAuliffe accused Republicans of stealing the 2000 election in his autobiography. In 2017, McAuliffe once again claimed that Al Gore did win the election. Former presidential candidate Reverend Jesse Jackson said Gore's election was essentially taken and stolen. Were any of these Democrats duly chastised for not going with the status quo? I could talk to you about Maxine Waters, but I don't want to quote her because I'd have to wash my mouth. I could talk about James Clyburn and Sheila Jackson Lee, all of them questioning the Florida electoral count as, quote, inaccurate. Even in 2004, Kerry against Bush, there were so many Democrats who actually refused to even consider the electors for 2004. But really what I want to talk about here in the last few moments of our show are how Democrats refused to accept the results of the 2016 election. In 2017, 7 House Democrats tried to object to the 2016 election electoral votes. After President Trump's victory in 2016, 67 Democrats boycotted his inauguration, with many, quote, claiming his election was illegitimate. After the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton repeatedly questioned the legitimacy of the election and claimed that the election was stolen from her. And the list goes on. Senator Dianne Feinstein, who doesn't know where she is right now, said, quote, I believe Russian interference altered the outcome of the election. And, of course, that was when that was the big deal to talk about. We already know after the fact, because hindsight is 20/20, that there was no Russian collusion. That was all a ruse. Senator Bernie Sanders dodged answering whether Trump was a, quote, legitimate president during a 2017 interview. Representative Ted Lieu, here from the grand state of California, said, quote, there absolutely is a cloud of illegitimacy, sorry about that, my tongue got in the way of my lip, to Trump's presidency. Representative Jerry Nadler from New York said that Trump's election was illegitimate and that Trump is an illegitimate president. Representative Jamie Raskin justified his decision to object to certification, saying Republicans engage in, quote, deliberate voter suppression in numerous swing states. I guess he didn't see 2,000 Mules. Democrats have continued to cast doubt on other elections since 2016. What about Stacey Abrams right now in the state of Georgia trying to reclaim the, quote, magic that she supposedly had in 2018 against Brian Kemp? She hasn't led in one poll in the last several months against Kemp. And I'm not saying that Kemp is the greatest governor that Georgia's ever had. It's probably going to be Jimmy Carter, right? But the fact is, she can't put the genie back in the bottle. In fact, the genie is out of the bottle, won't even want to go back in it. Did that make any sense? Well, think about that in a few minutes. But she hasn't led one poll. I wonder why. Do you know that if you ask Stacey Abrams right now if she thinks she's the duly elected governor of the state of Georgia, she would tell you yes. And by the way, she lost by over 40,000 votes. How come none of their Twitter feeds were shut off? How come Twitter didn't just completely erase them from our cosmic memories? Why didn't Facebook consider what they believed about 2000, 2004, and 2016 as a threat to democracy? Maybe, in reality, the left is gaslighting the right for what they actually are. Folks, we're coming to an election here in just a couple of months, and you have got to have a memory. You have got to remember what they have done. But let me just say this before we close out the show today. Electing conservative individuals is a great first step. But may I say, just making this homeland wonderful and this homeland great, what do you do after this life ends? Do you know Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior? I'm not talking about baptism. I'm not talking about church membership. I'm not talking about communion. I'm not talking about I've shaken hands with the preacher, and so I guess I'm good. Have you seriously considered looking into the claims of the Bible? Have you seriously considered looking into the claims of Jesus Christ? Jesus Christ claimed an exclusivity. He said in John chapter 14, verse 6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. He claimed a very exclusive message for him. Have you considered those claims? I would encourage you to be an inquiring mind about those things. And don't just close your mind off to that stuff because somebody that you said was a Christian hurt your feelings, or you're judging all Christians by some bad guy on TV that scammed a bunch of people out of their money. Remember, sinners are everywhere. But judge Jesus Christ on the merits of the Bible, not on the bad reputations of preachers or other religious groups that have completely besmirched the name of Christianity. Next week, here on our show at Politics in the Pulpit, we'll have Pastor Jerry Scheidbach and talk a little bit about his book, Let My People Breathe, and the curious case of the masks that still are worn by a whole bunch of people. And we will have an opportunity to talk to him next week, Wednesday, here live on Politics in the Pulpit. Thank you for joining us today. This is your holy host, Pastor Jerry Cook, from the Freedom's Way Baptist Church here in the beautiful state of California, in the lovely city, of Santa Clarita, saying you have a wonderful week. We will catch you next week here on your hometown station, 98.1 FM and AM 1220. God bless you.